Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this video. This is a review of Marvel's Ironheart. So we jump right into the opening of the video where it is Riri and her sister, uh, Natalie. I didn't figure that out until the middle of the show. But it's her and Natalie, and they're sitting on some steps. I think it's like a Capitol building, and they're talking and taking pictures and things like that. And then it shows Riri running up the steps of the university that she is at. And she is a technology major, MIT major. And she sits in class, and it shows her plugging in this round little device into like a machine. And then the machine just starts going all haywire and everything. And the guy, I guess he's the white guy, I guess he's a teacher. And, he says, run, she has done something. And then he just scatters off camera. And she's just looking like, wait, what? And then in the next scene, it shows her, I think, the dean's office. And she has all these disciplinary things against her. It's not a good look for the university. The university says she's been there for about 4 years and has nothing to show for it. And I guess the teacher, he's like in a sling. He was pouring coffee in a cup. And then he was like, you are a, and he said that Riri is a very big disappointment to Tony Stark Industries because Riri wants to be like Tony Stark. She likes what Tony Stark does, but she just doesn't have Tony Stark money. So while she was in school, she would sell things like those little devices that you plug into your computer, but it was like, techie. She would sell that for a couple of bucks. She would switch books back and forth with people. One had money and one had the invention. And then I guess she kicked like a trash can, and then a big old bubble went around the guy. And he was like, oh, I'm going to get an A. And she was like, yeah. And then, they exchange money or whatever because she's selling her projects for money for her suit to get a better suit. So the dean expels Riri from the school. And she's like very disappointed. So she goes back to her workstation. And so I guess she gets the idea to steal the thing that she was working with a couple hours ago before she went to the dean's office. She put that in her pocket. She put something else in her pocket. And she was looking around like see if everybody saw her. And then she started like walking to find the pieces of her suit. So she like put out her leg, and then the leg part came onto her, and then the other leg part, and so forth. And then the guards was like, well, we're here to walk her out and make sure she didn't steal anything. And then she just flies right by them, right? And then she's like, woo, woohoo, wee. And then when she's flying, she turns on her helmet. And those little things pop up like Tony Stark's helmet does. But hers is like a pencil. And it's like, oh, I need your student ID. And she's like, come on, man, you don't know my voice. I forgot the pencil's name. And so she's like, oh, whatever, 906, whatever, right? So she gives him the student ID. And then she's like, how can I help you? And she was like, directions to Chicago. And then the pencil's like, Chicago is a band. And she was like, ah, no, directions to Chicago, Illinois. And then he was like, okay, I got you. And then they start flying away, right? And then the the pencil was like, oh, there's something wrong with your upper body. And it had a picture of her heart. And she goes, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And then the pencil's like, blah, 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 start messing up. I guess she ran out of juice or something, honey. And then she goes, oh, we're almost there. Don't mess up on me. We're almost there. And all of a sudden, the pencil just puts an X on itself. And the face mask comes off and it lands near a guy. He's trying to hustle on the sidewalk. And he looks down and he sees it. And then all of a sudden, most of the suit is coming off. And then she just crashes in the middle of the street, like effed up, because she couldn't even control the suit manually. That's how bad the suit shut down. And then when she landed, it said Ironheart. And so when she got up and gathered all the broken pieces of the suit together, she was walking on the sidewalk, and a lady was like, Riri, is are you okay? Was that you that crashed? And then the lady was like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you need ice and a band-aid? And she just kept on walking. And then a little boy, he was like, oh, I saw you crash back there, blah, 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 right? And so he was introducing himself. And she introduced herself. And he was like, what do I call you? She was like, you can call me Miss Riri because I'm grown now and you're a kid. And so he was like, ooh, that's a bad introduction. Right? I was like, yo, a kid. And then the kid was like, oh, my name is Lionel, or whatever he said his name would start with an L. And then so she put her stuff in the boy's wagon. So sweet, and rolled it all the way to her mother's house. So when she got to her mother's house, the mother was like, Bree, is that you? And then she goes, hey, mama. And then she goes, oh, hi, auntie so and so. And then she goes, what happened to you? And she told her the whole spiel, how she got expelled from her college and all this stuff. And then so the auntie, she had like some sort of sage and like moving it all around the suit or whatever. And she was like, oh, you got to get rid of those evil spirits or evil smells within the suit or whatever, right? And then she goes, so and so to the auntie, what is a crystal? What color crystal is for bad girls who get expelled from school? And she said, a black crystal. And then all of a sudden, a guy, he comes into the how can I say this? He comes into the house. Oh, whatever. I think I'm skipping a part, but oh well, it's a review. And he was like, oh, hey, how you doing? And she was like, do you want to come with me? And she was like, oh no, but I gotta stay home. And then she goes, oh no, I can go with you right now. And then the mother was like, don't you dare. And then the door slams. And then they're walking down this way. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And he's like, oh, pretty girls like you should be at the club trying to get drinks. But, you're trying to do this suit, get this money, be like Tony Stark and all this stuff. Right? And, and then at the end, he was like, oh, I have a gift for you, but I made it for me, for you to listen to. So he gave her like a old school cassette player, and a little cassette tape. Them old ass earphones on it, right? Oh, it was so cute. And um, then there was this other scene where these people were trying to break into a house. Right, they were trying to break into a house, and Stewart, he wants to be called Rampage. So the guy goes to the doorknob, takes like a thing, I guess for the fingerprint, right? And then Stewart's like, "Oh my god, the alarm is not disabled anymore." Right? So it's not disabled anymore. They're like, "Ah, oh, damn shit." So they had to wait. And then they're like, "Stewart, hurry up." And he goes, "No, my name is Rampage." And they're just like, "Oh my god, no, it's not." Right? And then he goes, "Everybody else has a code name, and my code name is Rampage." And then so the black guy, he was like, "Stewart, how long is this gonna take? Like, bruh, you already messing up or whatever." And he was like, "Okay, you can go in, you can go in." So they burn it and they bust into the door. And then so they're like, "You need to go to your left, you go to the right, to this corridor or whatever." Bruh, for real. They open the door and all you hear is, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," and they're like, "Stewart, what the hell?" And then he was like, "Oh my god, they're trying to disable." And then they're like, "Look, you got company." So they started fighting with I guess they're like security guards or whatever. So they start fighting with them. And then they're like, "You know what? We gotta go. The police are on their way." And then in the next scene, they're like in this underground garage, and they're taking off the name, and the van is plain, and they got on like regular clothes. And then they tell the hood guy, he said, "This is what it is." And then the hood guy was like, "Okay, you guys did great, go home and rest," or whatever, right? And then Riri is at like, I guess like a used car place, when where they have the wheelchairs and stuff, because she was with the same guy that she was with last night. They were meeting up in the morning. And he was like, "Is that the right carburetor for your suit?" And she was like, Yeah, but I need this type of carburetor or whatever, because it would make the suit last longer." And then he was like, "Oh, well, you need to go talk to Jim." So she goes into Jim's shop, and Jim was like, "He needs to pay the whole thing in full, the whole thing." And then so she sees Jim, and she was like, "Oh, Jim, oh my God." And Jim was like, "Riri, is that you? I haven't seen you. And, oh my God. And I remember when you were 10, you used to come to my shop every day with that other girl." And she was like, "Yeah, Natalie, And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. You used to always spend your money in my shop." And then she was like, "Yeah, but I want to ask you for this one favor, this one favor." And then the guy, the thief, he jumps in. She's like, she wants to pay with all large bills. And then, she just looks, and then he has the rundown. He goes, "Oh my God, you're Riri Williams. You graduated high school. I think she graduated like middle school like at 9, and then high school at 11, and then she went off to college at 15." Right? And then like he said the whole spiel, y'all, the whole spiel. And then so they walk out, and then they say like, "Hey, I can get you a job where you can make money for your suit, blah blah blah," right? So in the next scene, Riri's in this elevator, and she's going to the place to meet the thief. And all of a sudden, it started filling up with gas. And then the guy was like, "Oh, you got 3 minutes to get out. And she was like, this is illegal. This shouldn't be happening to me. And he said, there's the hood guy said, the hood guy's talking. And he said that there was a gas mask in that box and you got 3 minutes. So time a ticking. So she's looking and he's like, oh, Stuart, she's as clueless as you because she is sweating. And then she just said, you know what? F this. So she breaks the thing and glass just shatters everywhere. And she starts cutting this wire. She bites the wire and she's trying to she hits it with another wire. And then she goes and she starts pulling that little heavy metal thing. She starts pulling it. And everybody's like, oh my God, oh my God. And then they're like, oh, Stuart, there's your replacement, right? And then she lifts up this heavy, heavy door. The elevator door is heavy. Child, I don't know how she does it. I know I wouldn't. And so she lifts it all the way up. And then the hood guy was like, oh my God, Riri, you did. He goes, what was that? Why were you trying to do that to me? And then they're like, you beat Stuart's time. And she was like, Stuart, the guy on the internet, Rampage, whatever. And then Stuart was like, yeah, that was me, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you need to quit it. Ain't no Rampage. And then so she does this whole spiel or whatever. And then he was like, you can call me and make some money. And she was like, oh, no, thank you. And she was like, I'm leaving, but I'm not getting in that elevator. And then she tries to open the door, and he goes, oh no, that's a closet. I could show you uh, why you would want to join us or whatever, right? So he takes this box out of this little closet thing, and he opens it, and it's like thousands of dollars in there. And then she was like, oh, you can get more than that if you do these 3 jobs. And she goes, well, what do you do? He goes, I'm a thief. I steal. I do this. I do that, or whatever, right? And she was like, why should I do that? And he was like, well, you can make a lot of money for your suit to build a better suit or whatever, right? And so he makes his ultimatum with her, and he pulls out a big old stack of money and he puts it in her hand. And she was like, yes, I'll see you tomorrow. And he goes, bring the suit. Okay, bring the suit. And she shakes his hand. So she's off to the races or whatever. And she gets home and she's listening to what the guy gave her. And he was like, oh, he got a cool voice, nice beat or whatever. And she's sawing something together. I don't know what it is. She's sawing something together. And then she hears her sister's voice. And she's like, Natalie? And then it makes her flashback to the beginning where she and Natalie are on the steps. And then it takes her way, way back to when she was a kid and Natalie and her dad were alive. And they were in the garage and they were fixing up that old car that she sold for money for her suit. And she was telling her dad, oh, you don't need a new engine. You just have to put this and this piece together. And he said, yeah, I know. And then he said, Natalie, I need that wrench. And then so they were talking. And then all of a sudden, they hear a ruckus. And then bow, 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 bow. The dad runs and pushes Riri at the bottom of the car in the front seat. And then him and Natalie, they get blasted or whatever, so they die. And then she starts crying. She takes off the headphones, and then she runs into kitchen. And then the mom was like, Riri, what's wrong? I heard you crying. And she was like, you sold Gary's shop or whatever. You did not even care. And the mother was like, Ree, you haven't even been here in the past 5 years. What would you know? And I didn't even think you would care. And then I went I went to the next scene. It shows Natalie sawing that thing again. Not Natalie, Riri sawing that thing again. And then she's with the suit, and it says, and she stood in front of the suit talking about power on, right? And then she had these things hooked to her temple or whatever, and then her laptop, and it says 4 hours and at 2%. So she has to wait for 4 hours for whatever she has to do, right? And then so the next morning she's sleeping, and then the voice says, Riri, wake up, Riri, wake up. So she wakes up and she goes, Natalie? And then Natalie was like, bitch, who else would it be? And then she faints. And then the show goes off like that. I think the show will get interesting. This show, the first one was kind of boring. I ain't gonna lie. It was kind of boring, but I hope it gets better.